Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Michelangelo's. And we also welcome not just the crowd that is assembled here this morning for this mayoral debate, but also our listening audience at 900 CHML. We are live right now on 900 CHML for this debate. This, as Keenan and Suzanne have mentioned, is a very pivotal election in the city's history. We've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of our city over the last couple of generations. We know we're on a positive swing right now. We can list a number of very, very positive and great things that are happening. But momentum is a key element. And if we've learned one thing, I think, in the last number of years, is that you can't rest on your laurels, that we have to keep on moving. There will be a new mayor. The incumbent mayor, Bob Bertine, of course, is not running for re-election. So it's going to be a new face in the mayor's chair, faced with a set of challenges, some very expensive challenges, and some I think some great opportunities to move this city forward. We have invited, as they have mentioned, the three leading contenders for the mayoral position, and we're pleased to have them here. We, as Suzanne mentioned, are going to allow them all 90-second, not a 90-minute. I saw a couple of eyebrows raised when Suzanne made a slip of the tongue there. This is not a city council meeting, guys. You don't get 90 minutes. Anybody tinkle on the glasses there, I'm just going to ignore it, okay? Yeah. But you'll have 90 seconds for an opening statement, and we're also going to allow for closing statements near the end, too, and then a series of questions. I will remind you, as Suzanne did, that there are opportunities for you to write your own questions down, too, and we'll have people go around and collect those as we go through there. And we are going to begin in alphabetical order with opening statements. And with that, we start with Brad Clark. Brad?
Thank you very much, Bill. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Our community is at a critical time in our history. We can go back to the old way of doing things and hope for a different result, or we can choose to move forward in a positive new direction. From Flamborough to Winona and Hamilton to Binbrook, people are telling me our city needs fresh leadership to face the challenges and seize the opportunities ahead. Over the past 4 years, City Council has turned the tide on the tax increases we saw under Mayors Deanne and Eisenberger, and we can't afford to go back. In this challenging economy, taxpayers are watching every penny and making hard choices. City Hall must do the same. Like you, I expect the city to spend tax dollars wisely on priority infrastructure projects and in ways that improve the services we depend on. Our city has a $200 million annual infrastructure deficit, and in 2 years our debt will hit $1 billion. That's why we need to move past the unaffordable LRT and focus on better citywide transit, including expanded bus rapid transit. Hamilton is a city of many communities, yet folks are concerned that council is too focused on the downtown. And I think it's time to restore balance to our city, to spread our focus beyond downtown. I've served as a city councillor and as Ontario's Transportation and Labour Minister. I know what it takes to create high-paying jobs in our community. Hamilton is on the doorstep of great things, but we can't achieve the prosperity we need with leadership from the past. For the change we need, it's time for a new mayor. I ask for your support on October 27th. I thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Next, Fred Eisenberger.
Thank you very much, Bill, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good to be here this morning. So people ask me why I'm running to be the Hamilton next mayor, and the answer is actually quite simple. I love my adopted city. I'm Dutch, I'm frugal, I loathe wasted time, energy, manpower, and resources. I want to see Hamilton thrive and prosper, and not only now, but 15, 25, even 100 years from now. That future means that we need to make sure that we make the right decisions in here and now, and often they're very tough decisions, but we need to make them and make them quickly. I have 5 main priorities to make this happen. First, we need to make Hamilton thrive, and to do that, we need to attract more new business to help create more jobs and opportunity in our city. Second, we need to strengthen Hamilton as a community. We must work with community organizations to bring about positive change and create a city that reflects the values of equity and inclusion. Third, we need to make Hamilton more responsible and more responsive. We need to make a new commitment to rethink how we do business at City Hall. Fourth, we need to invest in Hamilton's future. To do this, we need to make it a priority to reduce local poverty, increase the availability of affordable housing, build a modern public transportation system, and make regular infrastructure investments. Fifth and lastly, we need to make Hamilton stronger by expanding our partnerships and alliances. We need a strong, experienced voice to get Hamilton back on the radar with other levels of government and to make sure that Hamilton is getting its fair share. And I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work on day one. I have experience you can count on and leadership you can trust, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Fred. And Brian McHattie. Brian?
Good morning, everyone. I want to be your next mayor because I believe good enough is not good enough for Hamilton. We deserve great. Certainly you're paying for great. My platform is built on 5 key themes that I believe are hugely important to all residents and all businesses. 1, stronger neighborhoods that are defined by their residents, not by their boundaries. 2, smarter growth, so Hamilton gets better, not just bigger. 3, healthier environment, so our built and natural environments feed our lives and don't starve our future. 4, more open government, so public information and procedures benefit all, not just some. And 5, more jobs, to make working in Hamilton a personal choice, not a personal challenge. I've got detailed actions for each of these themes, actions based on the tons of feedback I've been hearing while I've been out there meeting with thousands of Hamiltonians where they live on my 100-day neighborhood tour of all the neighborhoods in Hamilton. People are expressing hope, not fear, about Hamilton's future and talking to me about the kind of leadership this city needs to move forward. Leadership based on collaboration, not on division. Leadership that focuses on a big and brighter future and not focused on the past or what can't be done. Leadership that's strong, positive, and hopeful. That's the leadership I'll bring to the job of mayor. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Brian. We'll now begin the question and answer segment, and as Suzanne already mentioned, we want to give everybody equal opportunity. So, notwithstanding who the question may be directed toward, all 3 candidates will have equal time to respond. And if they want to rebut anything that's said by one of the other candidates, they're certainly free to do that within the 2 minutes. And we want to maintain that 2 minutes, and I'm going to ask the candidates to make sure of that and be cognizant of that. I don't know if you can see the timer here. It's green when you guys are ready to rock and roll, but when it's red, that means your time is up. And we consider the electroshock treatment thing to try to stop it or play you off with the orchestra like they do at the award ceremonies, but we're just going to count on your good graces to abide by that, because we do have time limitations here, obviously, so we want to get to as much material as we can. Our first question. Your public works manager has told you that the city has run out of money to fix roads and sidewalks and bridges. Now, we all know that the federal and provincial government should be doing more, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. The work still needs to be done. How are you going to fund it? How are you going to find the money? And we'll start with Fred Eisenberger.
Thank you, Bill. And, you know, that's been a perennial and ongoing problem. You know, we've often asked the federal and provincial governments for that inclusive infrastructure program. You know, while I was mayor, in fact, you know, we had a significant economic downturn, probably the most significant one since the last Great Depression. And we did an economic stimulus package that actually worked for all municipalities across the country and buoyed our economy. And we need something similar to that today. But having said that, we need to take action ourselves. And while I was mayor, I introduced a 1% capital levy fee that would help address the future $200 million roads and infrastructure deficit, and also look for efficiencies in our system to reduce our expenditures. One of which was to put an energy reduction team in place that was self-funded and actually generated tens of millions of dollars of energy reduction expenses, which thereby could be used and translated into infrastructure redevelopment. You know what? Infrastructure, I've been singing the infrastructure song for about 25 years. We need to get at it. It's a very important issue. And, you know, when we look at the tax structures, you know, suddenly we get the staff saying, you give us zero every year, and we don't keep up with inflation. We are going to go backwards each and every year because we don't raise enough money to generate more work that needs to be done. Our biggest issue is our commercial industrial lack of tax revenue. That is the biggest issue for the city of Hamilton. We need more revenue, we need more business, we need more jobs. If we create more business and more jobs, we also create more tax revenue, and that tax revenue can be used to offset the infrastructure costs. So I'm for keeping the pedal to the metal on the economic development side. While I was mayor, I doubled the budget for the economic development department so that we could have more manpower, more resources, and more ability to have a farther reach and bring new business into Hamilton. And you can see some of the results with us today.
Thank you, Fred. Brian McHattie. Brian?
Get on 2 minutes.
Bill, I think the key to begin with is we need to spend much more time at Queen's Park and in Ottawa pursuing additional funding from the two higher levels of government. The property tax is a very limited source of funding, particularly for our residential homeowners throughout the city, but commercial and business as well. We need much more, a higher percentage of the gas tax from the province and the feds. And we need a stronger government relations strategy, which involves all councillors, the mayor and all councillors, and many people in this room. We need to go to Queen's Park in Ottawa as a team Hamilton to get a better arrangement. We just don't have the support. We need those income tax dollars coming back to the city of Hamilton that we've sent to those two higher levels of government. The key for council, and we've got a pretty good reserve set aside for infrastructure, so I don't think we run into the situation of running out of money quite that quickly as the question suggests. But we need to prioritize, and a week ago I announced a $22.5 million plan for local roads and bridges and sidewalks, which would be spent over the 4 years of the next round of council. It's a question of prioritizing our capital dollars and looking for efficiencies. And just yesterday at General Issues Committee meeting, we identified tens of thousands of dollars that we will be looking for in the 2015 budget to be even more efficient than we are today. So I think there's lots of opportunities to focus. Obviously, driving up here, you had the bumpy ride on our roads and perhaps tripped on a couple of sidewalks. So there's lots of work to be done. That needs to be a priority. It will be a priority for me as mayor.
Thank you, Brian. And Brad Clark. Brad?
Thank you very much. It really does start with our needs. We need to spend money based on the need and not based on the wants. So we need to start making sensible fiscal decisions with regards to the city. Our roads are in a mess, our sewers are weak, and we have serious concerns on both fronts. We have a $200 million infrastructure deficit at the present time. To raise additional revenue, we can't just simply go to the reserves and drain them as we did in the past 8 years. In the past 2-3 years, we spent a great deal of time actually on motions that I put forward to start rebuilding our reserves. We rewrote our reserve policies. We wrote a debt policy. So we will be getting our fiscal house in order, but we have to continue down that road. The challenge that we have is reaching out into the business community and actually bringing high-paying jobs to the community. The challenge that we have is making sure that we address the tax imbalance. The challenge that we have is to eliminate the impediments for the business community. Many of you in this room have applications that are sitting in our engineering department right now that have been sitting there upwards of a year and a half, 2 years, and still no approval. We have to address those issues in terms of how we eliminate that red tape to create the economic stimulus that the city needs to keep moving forward. We have to reach across to CEOs. In my plan, we want to have CEOs of major corporations working directly with the mayor, reaching out to their sectors and telling them why they stay in Hamilton, why they do business in Hamilton. Tell them about all of the benefits that we have. Bringing jobs to Hamilton is not just the responsibility of Neil Everson. It's the responsibility of the mayor, and that has to be aggressive, and we have to supercharge that effort. The only way we can address the challenges that we have in the future is to really concentrate on making our city business-friendly, open to business, and bringing those high-paying jobs to the city. That's how we address those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Next question. Let's talk taxes, okay? Hamilton has a tax base imbalance, 70% residential, well, 23% commercial industrial right now. And of course, we know about the vacancy rate of less than 2%. How will you overcome these challenges to grow the city's economy and attract additional corporate investment? And we'll start with Brian McHattie. Brian?
Well, the key is to attract more residential, commercial, and industrial taxes to our city. The current tax base, as you've explained in the question, Bill, has totally reversed from back in the days when we had a thriving business area down on Burlington Street. It's entirely different than it was, and we've got that tax imbalance. The key is to go out and we need to grow, I think, from a residential perspective. Easily another 100,000 people we can accommodate in this city in the next 15 years, if not more people than that, paying new taxes and new assessment. We need to make investments in the city that raises the values of the land throughout the city as well. And that's why I support the LRT, which from the studies that we've done indicates over 100 new building projects drawn by the LRT investment with 100% provincial funding on that along the B-line corridor. So that's King Street, Main Street, Cannon, Wilson, and Barton, areas that need that sort of investment to raise the property values and increase the assessment as well. You know, it's not all bad news on the tax front. We've actually got a competitive advantage on the office taxes, on the commercial taxes, about 20% lower than our competing municipalities. So we need to go after the mid-size offices from Toronto and throughout the GTA. This is an affordable place to live. There's a huge quality of life here, and those businesses I think are ripe for coming to Hamilton with that tax advantage we have, the transit we have, the downtown turning around, being successful. The downtown, of course, is our largest job producer right now at about 25,000 jobs in a single area, people coming downtown each day. So we haven't grown much as a city over the last 8 years or so. It's been incremental growth, and we've got huge opportunities to grow. Other cities adjacent to us have filled up outside of Toronto, and not a lot of land left. We've got the industrial business parks. The Red Hill Business Park is up and running. The airport Growth District is the next one. We've got the next urban boundary area identified in Elfrida. Proper development. We've done all the planning in place. We're waiting for the growth, and we need to pursue it aggressively.
Thank you. Brad Clark, same question. Tax imbalance.
Thank you very much. I think the real challenge is citing locations for industrial, commercial growth, and having the companies who are asking us, do we have affordable shovel-ready lands? That's the real challenge that we have with regards to luring companies and getting companies to relocate or set up factories here in Hamilton. The biggest challenge we face is converting contaminated brownfields around our port and throughout the city, and that most businesses, and you know this in this room, do not want to assume the financial risk and the liability. Complicating things further is that major lending institutions refuse to finance brownfield development because of this off-site migration issue, the potential, and because of the unknown contaminants that could result in costly, unexpected remediation efforts. Hamilton has a large inventory of brownfield sites, but the complexity and the rehabilitation won't happen quickly. And we need government incentives from all levels of government. The Airport Growth District presents the City of Hamilton with many exciting opportunities. Currently, we have 80 acres of shovel land ready in the proximity of the old golf course that is serviced. We have 60 acres of shovel-ready land in the Red Hill Valley Business Park, and we have 40 acres in the Ancaster Business Park. When counting our inventory of development lands, and when we're talking about the Airport Growth District, we have to be cognizant of the fact that we don't have a lateral route yet for the sewer. So the development there is at least 10 years away. So we really need to do more to reach out to businesses and concentrate on bringing them to the community, but we can't make things up. We don't have shovel-ready land at the airport yet. We don't have the sewers there. We have limited shovel-ready capacity. We need to concentrate on the brownfields also. but more importantly, we need to supercharge our economic development to bring businesses here to fix that balance in the taxes.
Thank you, Brad. And Fred Eisenberger. Fred, tax imbalance.
So supercharging the Economic Development Department is exactly what I did, and for the very reason that we understood then and we understand now that economic development, new business, new jobs is the foundation of not only correcting our tax imbalance, but creating new opportunities and jobs in our city. I did that because we wanted to improve on the ability for them to have a broader reach, not only to look for the big win. So Canada Bread came while I was mayor because we had a proactive effort to try and get them here. There was an opportunity to actually use our port, I should say, and our shipping truck and air rail capacity as an attractor for new business, and we are geographically well situated and we have all the resources available to us. We just need to market, sell, and bring new opportunities into Hamilton. One of the things that we overlook, though, is, the Canada Breads and the Maple Leaf Meats are, they're home runs that you hit every once in a while. But what you really need to focus on is how do we grow the existing businesses that are already here? How do we support and nurture small new business opportunities? That's why when we rebuilt City Hall, we put the Business Enterprise Center right on the ground floor so people would understand that this is a high priority for the City of Hamilton. And if they need new business, if they want to set up a new shop or a new business, they go there and they can walk through the process rather quickly and rather conveniently. But having said that, we still have a significant amount of red tape. Before I left, we put a task force in place to address the red tape issue. It's been 4 years now and nothing's been done. We have no streamlined process. It's better than it was, but it's not as good as it needs to be. We need to be open for business. So when someone comes to the door and says, I want to set up a mom and pop submarine shop, that we have a predictable, finely tuned process, one-stop shopping process that gets them through the process and gets them established as quickly as we can possibly make it happen. Those are the kinds of things that we need to do, and we need to also look at our residential capacity and look for those new growth opportunities. The airport expansion lands is an interesting question because Brian was an ardent opponent of that and today talks about it being a future asset for us. It is a future asset for us. But in the meantime, we have to look at those brownfields and see what opportunity we can also get out of that.
Thank you very much. Let's talk about the people who work for the city. And I know that at various times during your times on council, I've heard all of you pontificate, and I think justifiably so, about Hamilton's workforce, those that work for the city in various capacities. But there are some concerns there, too. And I've got some questions that I want to address to our panel about that, including a disturbing report that came down some months ago. This is done by city employees. Almost 60% of them who answered the survey, and that was a significant number, by the way, disagreed that the code of conduct complaints that were issued were actually handled appropriately. A quarter of the respondents said they have been pressured to compromise their ethics and values. Half of the respondents felt that they could not report misconduct without fear of retaliation. Some actually call the workplace a toxic work environment. As mayor, how do you propose to address this and to fix it? And we'll start with Brad.
Thank you, Bill. That's an excellent question, and I really appreciate it coming in. When I was a councillor in the last term, I pushed hard and successfully, I might add, for a whistleblower protection bylaw. We were the first municipality in the province of Ontario to adopt a whistleblower protection bylaw. And the bylaw is actually helping us significantly. Most recently, we heard about someone who was stealing coins from parking meters, which most of us would think that's very difficult to do. The whistleblower protection bylaw actually worked. There were individuals who noticed what was going on. They contacted a councillor, and the councillor kept the name confidential, passed on the information to the staff, the senior staff, and they did an investigation, and subsequently the police were notified and the individual was dismissed. So the whistleblower protection bylaw works, but we need to ensure that we enforce it. So that means when employees raise concerns about someone in their department or concerns about sexual harassment or any type of workplace harassment, that it has to be taken seriously by management. We have started to change that culture, and it's imperative that that culture change. I can tell you from my experience in the Ministry of Labour, it is a significant item that reduces productivity in a workforce if you have a workforce that feels they don't want to go to work in the morning, that they're afraid of being bullied, or they are afraid of making suggestions to the management. That is changing. And the whistleblower protection bylaw was a big part of addressing that issue. It'll be interesting to see what the next survey says now that the employees know that we are watching their back and trying to improve the culture across the city.
Thank you, Brad. To try to keep everybody in line here with the timing, when I stand up, it's usually with about 10 seconds left, just to give you some sort of an idea as to what's going on. We'll move on to Fred Eisenberger. The same question, Fred, about workplace environment. And I'm sure, as we talked about on our program on CHML, when you start looking at answers like this, and then you start looking at other statistics about absenteeism, you know, if people don't like going to work, they're going to call in sick. It's a real problem for the city, and it's costing taxpayers a lot of money. How do you fix it?
So, you know, one of the things that councils in the past have not focused on is the HR department, the Human Resources Department, and what we need to do to ensure that employees are treated fairly and equitably across the board, and make sure that we have policies in place that actually responds to the needs of the employees. You know, you need to have happy employees. You're all in business. Your greatest asset are the people that you have working for you. And if you don't treat them with dignity and respect and with equity, then you are going to continue to have problems. We've seen problems in the Public Works Department. We've seen problems in the, while I was mayor, we had a significant problem in the bylaw department, where we had bylaw inspectors basically deciding, you know, they were not going to follow the rules of bylaw inspection, and were freelancing in many respects on the issues that they had to deal with. And what we ended up doing was actually firing the entire bylaw department and then rehiring the people back on the basis that they would get retrained. And that leads me to another part of that equation, is that people that you have employed need to know that there's opportunity for them to grow. They need to know that there's opportunity for them to retrain and get training in different categories of what they do. They need to be able to enjoy going to work in the morning. And without a proper HR department and a true level of trust and respect from the leadership, that isn't going to happen. So I'm really on for making sure that we have the proper human resources intact, in place, so that we can treat all of our employees fairly and equitably, and have a program that encourages them to retrain and enjoy the work experience that they have in the city of Hamilton. We have 10,000 employees. That's a big business. It's a big organization, but it takes organization and talent to make sure it all runs effectively.
Thank you, Fred. And Brian McHattie. Brian, the same question.
Bill, the report that you mentioned, you cited some of the information from there. That was a wake-up call for City Council about 2 years ago, where we had that report provided, and Council jumped right on it and said, look, this is a very fundamental, deep-seated issue. It's about a culture change that needs to occur at our staff in all the different departments. People not being happy to come to work at the City of Hamilton, feeling intimidation by various levels of supervision or perhaps colleagues in different departments. And quite frankly, Council needed to and is still in the process of looking back at themselves. City Council needs to lead by example. We need to be much more courteous than we are now. Much more proper and thoughtful in our debate and the discussions we have during City Council. The mayor needs to lead that culture change right at City Council, and we need to make sure we're respectful. And the way we interact with city staff has not always been the best between council and staff as well. And there has been, I've seen situations where there's intimidation occurring, and there's at the point where city staff have told me that they're not comfortable in bringing forward innovative out-of-the-box solutions for fear that they're going to be shut down very, very quickly by City Council. So we can talk about the culture change throughout the different departments, and Chris Murray, our city manager, is taking the lead on that, making presentations to 250 staff at a time in the different departments, purposely doing that throughout the different sections right across the city. The mayor needs to be there with the city manager making those speeches. So we're represented at council, but we have to look at what we're doing as city council. We have to have staff feel free to come forward with the creative ideas and to take the chances they need to take to move the city ahead.
Thank you, Brian. We will continue with a question about staffing, and we are taking questions from the audience. We are, by the way, live on 900 CHML with our mayoral debate from Michelangelo's, and we are also taking questions not just from our listeners, as we did over the last couple of days on our program, but also, of course, from the business community and from the audience who are here today at Michelangelo's. This is kind of I think, a spin-off question to the one we just talked about staffing. As an elected official of a unionized municipal workforce, I'm interested in your opinion of the current arbitration system and the assertion that it is broken. And that, of course, is a council position. It was something that was debated at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario recently, too, just a couple of weeks ago, and reasserted by city councils and city council members from right across the province of Ontario. And they're talking about the arbitration system, of course, for police and fire, specifically, and emergency workers. That also includes first responders and paramedics. Are you convinced, and do you agree that the system is broken, and how do you address it? And we'll start with Fred Eisenberger.
Well, I completely agree with that. I mean, it's been an ongoing frustration with certainly the police negotiations, where their right to go to arbitration is given to them, granted to them. So if they're not happy with the negotiated settlement with the Police Services Board, which happens perennially, they can just say we go to arbitration. And unfortunately, through arbitration, up until recently, and I think this has changed, I might be corrected, that ability to pay has not been a factor that the arbitrator has been factoring into the decision-making process. And invariably what happens is that the negotiated arbitration settlement, not negotiated, the arbitrated settlement, goes to the highest possible level without considering the ability to pay between Toronto or other places. So Toronto, certainly for policing, is the benchmark. And certainly, I don't deny the police service. The police service, they're a good pay. It's quality work that needs to happen in our community. They keep us safe. But at the same time, we have an affordability issue that starts to get squeezed as we go up to the highest possible pay grade throughout the province without the same ability to pay that differential. So I think there has to be a new solution. What AMO has talked about, and what we've talked about previously as the Big City Mayors Caucus, in fact, was about collective negotiating throughout the province at the same time for all police services. That way they cannot particularly use one against the other. And you know what? It's a good ploy for the Police Association to use, but it's particularly hurtful for municipalities, smaller municipalities that are fiscally challenged, to be able to pay the Toronto rate for policing and services in ambulance and fire. So I think the province has to step in. Clearly, that's been what the Labour Board has to consider. The province has to step in and make some sort of a change that would allow for fair and reasonable negotiations for police services across the province.
Thank you, Fred. To Brian McHattie. Brian, you know from your time on council, wages and benefits, one of the driving forces in every municipal budget. What about this arbitration system? Is it broken?
Well, it certainly is. That's an easy one to answer in terms of the comment that it is broken. Fixing it's another thing, but Fred's right in the sense that the key is to get at this ability to pay aspect, because currently the mediators involved in that simply say all you have to do is raise taxes. You have the ability to raise taxes as a municipality, and you can afford to almost any settlement that they come up with just by raising taxes. And they don't consider the average incomes of the various cities that are up against these mediated settlements. Right now, it is province-wide bargaining by the police and the fire service in particular, paramedics as well. And while we greatly respect the service that they provide to Hamilton Police, fire and paramedics, it's unsustainable for our city budget. Most of our budget is wages and benefits. And if you look at the last 4 years of City Council, I'm really very proud at how we've fought hard to come in with a very low budget. In fact, with our own city departments, we've been right at zero. A couple of years actually down at 0.2%, actually lower than zero in our city budgets, public works, planning, those departments. And it's been the police budget that's taken us up to around 1.3, 1.5% tax increases. So that's what's driving our budget, particularly the last 4 years. It's got to change. We need to develop a Hamilton, more of a Hamilton-specific relationship with our police, fire, and EMS unions. That's the job of the mayor as well as the city manager and others to develop those relationships. We need a Made in Hamilton solution that allows us to invest in our parks, invest in other important things, roads and bridges, invest in economic development that's going to be good for the whole city. These workers live in Hamilton, most of them, and we need to appeal to their interests as Hamiltonians.
Thank you, Brian. Brad Clark, same question about this arbitration system and the impact it has on taxpayers.
Thanks, Bill. First, let's correct the record. We don't have province-wide bargaining for the fire department and the police department. It's local, and it has been forever. Secondly, this is one of those ones where I've told many of you before, I'll always be straight up with you and tell you exactly, even if it's not exactly what you want to hear, but the arbitration process in Ontario is not broken. If you look at the rolling averages of increases from the Ministry of Labour over the last 10 years, the difference between collective bargaining and arbitration comes out to a variance of plus or minus 1%. Why do people say arbitration is broken? Well, they say it's broken because they see these large numbers after it's gone to an arbitration hearing. First, the arbitration hearing is completely unbiased. So when politicians say it's skewed to the Labour side, that's not true. The arbitrators are picked by the Minister of Labour. 3 letters are put before them, 3 CVs. And each of those CVs represent an arbitrator that is on an approved list with experience in that sector. And they make the decision in an unbiased manner. And the ability to pay is one of the things that they consider. It is not the only thing that they consider. So why do people think the arbitration system is broken? It's because many times the arbitrations take years before the final decision is made. And the collective agreements have ended. And so you end up getting a decision where there's 10% increase, and that hits the headlines as a 10% increase. But it's not a 10% immediate increase. It's over time. It's the total value of that. So we really need to understand carefully, and we don't need to throw spears in the Labour community about the arbitration system, because it's the last opportunity where things break apart between the management and the union leaders. What we really need to do is address it before then through good faith collective bargaining.
Thank you. We appreciate the questions from the audience. And by the way, a number of these things are somewhat redundant from other things that we're going to get to, and a number of them about something about LRT. I don't know what that is. A new issue, I guess, has just come up. We'll get to that in just a couple of minutes. Next question. The city is growing, and some consider that there is now a disproportionate number of people in some wards in the city. Council's answer in the past to this has been to simply hire more support staff, but a recent petition from residents says they want further action. Looking at alternatives, should we have more councillors on city council? Should we redraw the ward boundaries? Now, without falling back on that cliche of let's study it, tell us what you would do. We'll start with Brian McHattie.
Well, certainly the city has changed considerably in how it's set up. Ward 7, for example, in the middle of the mountain is about 70,000 citizens now, and that's much larger than some of the lower city areas and certainly out in the former area municipalities. So it's an issue we need to deal with. I agreed with the citizen petition that Bill referenced, that it needs to be looked at, and council, in fact, given where it was in our cycle last time, it couldn't be changed in time for this election, but we asked for the issue to be examined in time to make a change for the next election that is coming. So we're establishing a citizens panel to look at the issue. It's difficult when council does that themselves. There's all sorts of different parochial ward interests that end up coming forward, which become problematic to make a reasoned decision, a good analysis of the situation. So we'll have a third party examine the situation. They'll come to council with recommendations, and then I think we need to make those changes with the ward boundaries. It's a complex subject, though. There's the population issue where I just mentioned Ward 7 exploding in numbers, but every part of our city is extremely different. I've done this 100-day neighborhood tour, over 190 neighborhoods throughout our city. And while some may not be as highly populated, such as the rural areas, they have a whole set of complex issues that require different support and may make some adjustments on their ward boundaries as well. An area like Ward 1 that I've represented in the last 10 years has the student housing issues and which draws a lot of attention, a lot of resources from the city. Out in Stony Creek, there's a whole other set of different issues, depending where you are, the large senior population in Dundas. So all those different factors need to be brought into the analysis. It's not strictly a population issue. Given the complexity of that, we've asked for the Citizens Panel to look at the issue, and I'm prepared to make changes to the ward boundaries in time for the next election.
Thank you, Brian. To Brad Clark. Brad, as you know, this was an issue that even the municipal affairs minister of the government of the day in 2000 didn't want to touch during amalgamation. The problem's not going away. What do we do about it?
When in my very first term, I took a little bit of heat and criticism from the suburban communities because I supported wards 1 through 8 councillors in their request to redivide the ward boundaries. And I was the only suburban fellow that did that. And they asked why I would do that, and it's because there is an imbalance. But it's more complicated than just an imbalance. And incidentally, the council of the day had the time in the first term. They put it over to the next election, and we've done it again. The Municipal Act makes it pretty clear how the process goes forward, and the council can make the decision with regards to the ward boundaries. But it also gives the residents the opportunity, where a council refuses to make the decision, to file a petition, which happened this term, and they were just shy of the number of votes or signatures on the petition to force it to the OMB. Once again, it was put over. I asked every single year in this term to start the process on the redivision, and it just kept getting put over. The reality is that we need to concentrate on a couple of things. First, we need not a citizen panel. I disagree with Brian. We need an expert who actually knows what they're doing with regards to ward boundaries, and sometimes it's a retired judge, but you can actually get those folks to actually do that job. We need to acknowledge that the rural agricultural area has historic heritage, and that's supported by Supreme Court decisions. So I don't expect you're going to see significant decisions about ward boundaries in the agricultural area. Where you will see the shift is in the urban area, within the urban boundary where the major population is. And it should be shifted. And get the advice from the judge and make the decision and stop dilly-dallying.
Thank you, Brad. And to Fred Eisenberger, and to Brad's point, he's right. City Council's punted this thing downfield more than Paul Osbaldiston did for the Tiger Cats. When are we going to deal with this, and how will you deal with it?
So when amalgamation was brought down by the Clark-Harris government, I wish they had. I wish they had done a better job of actually aligning the issues, and when they were trying to balance the protection of the suburban communities to the inner city, and I get that, but it did create an imbalance in terms of population. So in Ward 8, we've got something in the order of 60,000 people represented by one councillor, and in rural Flamborough, there are some 30,000 people also represented by one councillor. So there's an obvious inequity, but there's a tradition in Canada. We have a tradition of making sure that people of different different provinces and different areas in the provinces get to respect and reflect their areas of interest. And that has been a tradition that has allowed for an imbalance. So PEI is a province unto itself. It has excellent representation as a premier. It has a number of senators probably out of balance in terms of what the rest of the country has. But they understand that PEI is a unique culture that needs to be respected and reflected in terms of the decision-making that happens across the country. So in Hamilton, I agree with Brad that, we should get at this issue and come to a resolve. In this case, the citizens panel, I'm not sure would particularly be helpful because there's always that conflict. We could certainly, appoint someone and say, come and tell us what the best solution is, but here are the criteria that we want as a community to reflect in terms of that decision. And then the criteria ought to be that we ought to respect the differences in Stony Creek, the differences in Flamborough, the differences in all the suburban communities, as well as the imbalance that's happening in the old inner city of Hamilton. This is one of those issues that, is like area rating. Unless you come up with a resolve, it festers and lasts forever, it seems. And certainly amalgamation, the issues around amalgamation are still with us, and we have to be sensitive to that. We are still better together than we are apart, but there are still lingering issues that we need to deal with, and the quicker we deal with them, the better.
Thank you. Let's talk about the elephant in the room then. Let's talk about transit and LRT and BRT and things of that nature. This is a question we got from our CHML listeners yesterday when I asked them what you wanted these candidates to talk about. We all know City Council's position on LRT, but the full funding the Council is hoping for has not yet materialized. In the meantime, our transit system is languishing. Instead of waiting by the phone for the province to fund LRT, what is your plan to fix transit now? We'll start with Brad Clark.
We approved a document, a Rapid Ready report. It's an excellent document. I was very pleased to support it. Within that document, it actually assessed how we get to be, as the title implies, Rapid Ready. And there's $155 million worth of capital construction that's required within our transit system to improve our transit system, enhance it, and harmonize the routes. Of that $155 million, Metrolinx, through the current funding criteria approved by the Minister of Transportation, will pay $107 million. We know this now, but we've still been talking and waiting about LRT. And the challenge is, while we talk and wait, and incidentally, you can't build LRT overnight, and it looks like it could be 10 years out based on the comments of the minister. That's 2 terms of government, by the way, at least. We wait and we wait. So I have said very clearly that we need to change the discussion. We need to start looking at our local transit needs now. We need to enhance bus rapid transit. We need to meet with the minister about that $155 million worth of improvements, which incidentally is across the entire city. It's not just on a 13-kilometer route. And we need to have that discussion now. The minister has indicated very clearly recently that they're very pleased to have that conversation because they have real fiscal challenges right now also. It's been my experience when a municipality works with a minister when they have fiscal challenges, they also work with you when the fiscal challenges disappear. That's called relationship building. So we need our transit system improved now. We need to work with the minister now. They have fiscal issues now. We have fiscal issues now. Let's start phasing in the changes and get the money rolling for local transit now.
Thank you, Brad. To Fred Eisenberger, well, the provincial government obfuscates on this. Fred, what's the immediate plan?
So the immediate plan is to improve public transportation throughout our community. But I think we have to be, honest with the community that LRT does have a significant return on investment. And, that's something that Mr. Clark actually doesn't talk about. For the past 7 years, we've been planning and organizing and working on LRT and the enhancement of public transportation in Hamilton. Mr. Clark has supported that from the beginning to the end up until a month ago. So it's a passing interest to me to understand what new information has come about to actually make that change. But the reality is there's a stack of reports this big that all of us have used in terms of the decision-making process, and Council has almost unanimously, except for the last month, said that LRT is our best possible option because it presents the best return on investment. And so clearly there's it's not unlike the expressway when it was built. The expressway was predicated on creating new commercial industrial taxes and revenues when it was built. In fact, what's happened is that even though we spend $8 million a year maintaining and operating the road, we generate $16 million in terms of new taxes and new revenue, and LRT is no different. Having said that, I understand that there's concern out there. People have questions. For the last 4 years, the transit office has been shut down. Information hasn't been shared in terms of the benefits and return on investment in LRT. It should be no great surprise to anyone that people are confused. And so I say, when I'm mayor, I will institute a citizens jury panel, bring people in from all parts of our city. This is a very big issue for Hamilton. It's a huge investment on the provincial dime, by the way, not on the City of Hamilton dime. And if there isn't provincial funding, there is no project. Have that citizen panel have a look at it. Let them make a recommendation, and I will live by that recommendation, whether it's BRT, LRT, or nothing at all. I think we need to have a process that's defined, that's clear, and that the community is on board, and that's clearly not the case right now.
Thank you, Fred. And to Brian McHattie. Brian, many of our listeners and our audience here today identify you as one of the champions of LRT from the early days, from your time on council. Some are now considering LRT as a long-term goal as opposed to short-term, simply because of the way the province is handling on this. What do we do now?
Well, I think it's important to go back a little bit in this bill to remember how all this came about. The city's been studying this issue for about 4 or 5 years. And we did lots of public consultation during that period of time. And it all led to the February 2013 Rapid Ready report, which came to City Council, which included a full analysis of the options, and came forward and said the B-line LRT on King Street was the best option. Those studies that focused on that, on the B-line LRT, which provides us with over 120 new development projects along the corridor, not just King Street, but all the corridors beside it, based on King, Main, Wilson, Cannon, Barton Street, the cross streets going north-south, an area that, particularly east of the downtown, that needs that public investment. It reviewed the LRT systems right across North America, and the finding was that when the rails go in the ground, the developers take the cue from that, and they build the new residential, the new office buildings along that corridor, along the corridors within about 800 meters of the main corridor. So that was the studies that were done. We spent $5 million of city money designing the LRT B-line on King Street, $5 million of Metrolinx money from the province of Ontario. So $10 million sunk into this. Council reviews that report February 2013, makes a unanimous decision at that point to support LRT B-line. So, as business people, once you make a decision as a board of directors, or in our case as a city council, you don't want to negotiate from a position of weakness, where all of a sudden the board of directors start running off in different directions. And that's unfortunately what's occurred in Hamilton. Mayor Bettina, although he voted in favor of the LRT twice, it was not in favor of it, and when he goes to Metrolinx meetings, he starts putting that seed of doubt into the province's mind as to whether that's actually our position or not, despite the unanimous position. Councillor Clark, as Fred indicated, just the last month or so, despite voting twice in favor of LRT B-line, has now decided that he wants to pursue a different direction. Now's not the time when you're in the negotiation phase of the province of Ontario, now's not the time to start changing your mind. Having said that,
I also... Wrap it up, Councillor.
Yeah. Pardon me?
Got to wrap it up. You're a minute and a half over. Okay. Oh, I know. Let me ask you a follow-up question then, because when we did this segment on our program yesterday on CHML, and I asked about LRT, and guess what? That was the predominant issue. Go figure, right? But an awful lot of people had a simple question that they wanted me to put to the panel, and I don't know if you need 2 minutes to answer this, but it's kind of an up and down yes or no, I suppose. But I guess we should allow you some leeway to maybe expand on your answer, or to justify your answer. I'm starting to hear more and more from the community, from various parts of the community right now, that they would like to see, obviously not in the election coming up on the 27th of October, but for some time in the future, would you support a referendum on the LRT issue for Hamilton? And we'll start with Fred Eisenberger.
Well, it's too late, unfortunately. For this term of council, as you well know, you have to have that decided a year in advance of your election. So, I'm not on for...
I think the point was you can hold a referendum at any time on any issue. Now, there's no general election in Scotland today, but they're holding a referendum.
Right. Well, fair enough.
So,
fair enough.
Let's do it on that context.
So as I just laid out for you, I think that we ought to have a citizens jury process. We did exactly the same thing with area rating. It was a complex issue for the city. Lots of acrimony that could result, and we set in place an area rating citizens jury, and you pick it just like you would a jury. And if a jury can have the life of someone in their hands in terms of the judicial system, certainly they can have a good hard look at our LRT and public transportation. You pull people from different parts of the community, you sit them down and say, look at all the evidence that's there. We don't need a new report. We don't need a new direction or a new analysis. All the information is there. You look at all of that information and you make a recommendation in terms of what you think is the best direction for Hamilton. Personally, I think most people would come out with a return on investment that says that LRT is the biggest bang for our buck. There's a return there that we don't ignore, that Mr. Clark doesn't talk about. There is a benefit to be had in terms of enhancing the movement of people in our community, but there's also the redevelopment opportunity that comes with LRT that doesn't come with other types of public transportation. So at the end of the day, I'm on for that kind of a citizens panel. I think it's a little late for referendums. I want to get on with deciding and then get on with generating the benefit that comes out of whatever system we pick. But if there isn't 100% funding, there is no project.
Thank you, Fred. Brian, same question. You've heard the calls in some circles for a referendum on this issue. Would you support that?
No, Bill. I think we've had lots of discussion on LRT. There were lots of public meetings that occurred leading up to the Rapid Ready report in February 2013. We've had two unanimous, or almost unanimous. The second one was 15-1. Council positions in favor of 100% provincial funding for LRT. We've laid out the benefits of LRT in terms of the tens of millions of dollars and new assessment. Thousands of jobs to build LRT, to actually construct those over 100 new projects along the corridor, which really changed our city. It's a 7-year build for LRT, so we're looking at Hamilton in 2022, 2023, a very different place. On our way to 100,000 new Hamiltonians, population increase, and we need to set that up on a transit-oriented development style in the lower city. There's lots of room for redevelopment in the lower city. We need to do that. So I think we've got the information we need. The province has the information, $10 million, 30% design. We're shovel ready, to use that phrase, and the province knows that. They've said we're ahead of all the other municipalities in terms of our planning and design. We've got a growth plan that takes us to 2031 that's based on nodes and corridors. City Council passed that. It says nodes and corridors, which is exactly what the LRT is. So all the planning's in place, and to go backwards at this point in time would continue to send mixed messages. Take the province off the hook. They're going to say, well, you guys are confused, you're delaying, and we can give the money to Mississauga or Brampton or Toronto. $15 billion has been set aside as we speak, sitting there at the province of Ontario for rapid transit. And we need to get that money for Hamilton. If we don't get it for Hamilton, it's going to go somewhere else. The time is now.
Thank you, Brian. Brad Clark, referendum on LRT, Brad.
Yes, I've never ever had a challenge, or was never afraid of referendums. They're a tool that can work very well within the community, and it does give you that immediate feedback to provide the advice to the council. So the answer to that question is yes. With regards to the rosy economic projections that my opponents continually raise, it's important that you really start to analyze those numbers. In December 2013, the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy indicated that bus rapid transit can spur development more efficiently, I underline more efficiently, and at a lower cost than LRT. So bus rapid transit also encourages economic development. We haven't heard that. Even the Ministry of Transportation experts have confirmed that rapid buses will deliver more value for money and provide the same type of economic benefit. So how did we get to where we are with these rosy projections that LRT is going to be the panacea for Hamilton? Well, there is a number of reports, and if you look at them, there's information that's been added to the reports that skews the report. It's under the title of city building. So where you as a business would look at a thing based on fact, based on expenses, based on cost, based on revenue, governments add other items, city building, and that skews the report significantly. The fact is that there are numerous transportation studies that show that bus rapid transit will do exactly what we're talking about at LRT. And the other economic study about LRT, there is absolutely no guarantee on either side, bus rapid or LRT, that all that economic development will occur. So we could end up spending that money and find out 20 years from now that the development did not occur. And then how does the city pay for our operating costs then?
Thank you, Brad.
Okay, it's a big issue.
It is a big issue, and obviously we could spend an hour and a half simply talking about transportation and transit, but we do have a number of other issues, and our time is short. As a matter of fact, we're getting into the home stretch right now. New question. New research has found that if enacted, the municipal land transfer tax in Hamilton will lead to the loss of $342 million in economic activity and a reduction of $176 million in GDP. If elected as mayor, will you protect affordable home ownership and commit to not bringing a municipal land transfer tax to Hamilton? And we'll start with Brian McHattie. Brian?
Well, thanks, Bill. I'll try and save us some time on our questions. The answer is clearly no. That's not the direction we want to go in Hamilton. I've read those studies. I've seen what's gone on in Toronto where they have that. And we don't have the legislation, City of Hamilton Act, the way they have the City of Toronto Act. And we haven't asked for that from the province of Ontario. There's no indication that the province of Ontario is giving additional taxing powers like that to other municipalities anyways. Despite all that, I have those same concerns in the way the information was contained in that question, Bill. And the answer is absolutely not.
Thank you, Brian. And Brad Clark. Brad?
No, I don't support it. And the economic benefits that have been touted on it have also been stretched significantly. It's a quick fix for a municipality on revenue, but the impacts of it are staggering to the economy. And so we need to be very clear and indicate right up front, there's not a chance. That will hurt Hamilton. It will not help Hamilton.
And Fred Eisenberger. Fred?
And that'll make it the trifecta. The answer is no as well. No surprise. You know, that's far too easy a solution to just go after a tax grab and see if we can, solve our problems through that process. As I mentioned earlier, even though we spend a lot of time talking about LRT, our biggest issue will remain LRT or no LRT, BRT or whatever you want to call it. I'm sorry to upset you on that one.
Just fell over when they heard you all agree on something. That's
Wow. Staggering. No matter what we call it, our biggest issue is the growth in the commercial and industrial sector. That's what we need to continue to focus on, and that's why we can do the divisive politics and, create the wedge. And, Mr. Clark, now talks a great BRT game. So he must have missed something in all the reports that he read for the past 7 years, because clearly all that information was in there. So I'm astounded that suddenly there's a new track there. We need to focus on economic development. We need to focus on making sure that we have the ability, the manpower, the resources to grow businesses in Hamilton. Knock on those doors and say, how can we find you new markets? How can we help you expand your capacity? How can we help you generate more employment? Look for those big wins out in the broader community, but don't look for the easy tax grab. Toronto did it. Toronto has unique challenges all its own. They also did the automobile tax on an annual basis. I think they added about $20 onto the licensing fee. Those are far too easy solutions. We need to look for more creative, innovative, and aggressive ways of growing our economy.
Thank you, gentlemen. Everybody who has run for mayor has presented a platform, a wish list, a string of ideas, a concept on how they want to move the city forward. But even after they get elected, not so easy sometimes. As a matter of fact, one of the criticisms of city council over the last number of years has been that when you get down to City Hall there, they think there's 16 mayors, not just one, because everybody seems to have their own agenda. If you are elected as the next mayor for the city of Hamilton, how do you convince council to accept your vision and to move forward on that vision? Brad, we'll start with you. Brad Clark.
Very clearly, it's facilitation. It's sitting down with the councillors one-on-one, finding out what their concerns are, what their issues are in their ward. That would be the first priority, to make sure that I meet with all of the councillors to find out what they would like to accomplish in this term of council. And then sharing my priorities as the mayor and getting their feedback. Politics is always about pragmatism, being practical. It's not about putting your feet in cement and refusing to budge on the issue. It's about finding the solution, finding the common ground. All 16 elected officials in Hamilton really have their communities in their heart. It's in their minds. They want Hamilton to succeed. They want Hamilton to thrive. I was born in Hamilton. I was raised in Hamilton. I love Hamilton. I now live in Stoney Creek. Stoney Creek is a part of Hamilton. We're proud of Hamilton. I fought for Hamilton and the province internationally as a minister. I understand that we need to put Hamilton first, and so do the councillors. If you create that common goal, if you create that common vision, and they understand that we're all in it together, and that councillors are not the loyal opposition to the mayor, and that the mayor is not the prime minister who has executive authority, then you start to develop the relationships that move the city forward. It's not rocket science. It's just simple, basic courtesy and civility and working together with common goals. I believe it can be done. It has been done in the past. It hasn't been done for the last 8 years, but we can most certainly move forward and get everyone working together.
Thank you, Brad. To Fred Eisenberger. Fred?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did as mayor, and it worked actually quite successfully by and large, but you have to have willing players. And so there's two things I would say to you. There are some lone wolves that operate on council, and you have to consider when you're electing people on the council basis, are they both not only inclined to look after their locality, but are they also interested in the big picture? Having said that, I think we have a structural problem, and I've talked about this before. There's only one person that's elected at large that is mandated to look after the big picture, and invariably you have essentially 16 local mayors that have parochial interests and basically say often that we're not too terribly concerned about the big picture. We just want to make sure we get reelected again. So there's a structural problem, and we used to have a board of control that had 5 members of council elected at large, or we have an approach that they do in Vancouver where all of the councillors that are elected at large. So structurally, we really have set ourselves up to continue to kind of propagate that kind of division, where there's only one person elected at large that looks after the big picture, and there are 16 others that are elected locally, and therefore their interests are parochial and they stay local by and large. So I think we have to have a long discussion, or a good discussion, about looking at our structure to ensure that at large that actually allows into the future. Having said that, the mayor does have the bully pulpit, and when you have the opportunity to become mayor, you have the opportunity to speak about issues and get the community on side in many respects, and that's a good way of actually kind of leading the community into more positive change and leading councillors to do the same. It's all about relationships. I had great relationships with all councillors, continue to have that, and we'll hit the ground running when I'm mayor again in a month and a half.
Thank you, Fred. And to Brian McHattie. Brian, your time on council, you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. Sometimes councillors are all hugging, singing Kumbaya, and other times it's a war zone. How does the mayor move that agenda forward with all those different opinions?
Well, there's no doubt that it's the biggest challenge any mayor faces, is trying to harness council and to move ahead as an entire city. The first thing I would do when elected is to go and visit each and every councillor, the 15 councillors, and say, look, you know, you've just been elected or re-elected in your area. You came in with a certain platform. What are your top 3 priorities that you need to get done in this term of council? And how can I, as mayor, help you deliver on those 3 priorities? With the mayor's office assisting in your ward, doing what I can do to make you be successful. If you're successful as the Ward 7, Ward 4, whatever council it is, if you're successful, then Hamilton's successful, and I'm successful as the mayor. And by the way, I've got 5 different priorities, or a number similar to that, that I need to see, we need to see happen right across this city. And we need to see for the betterment of Hamilton, and I want you to play a part of that as the ward councillor. And in fact, I'd like you to step up and play a leadership role on one or more particular topics. Maybe the ward councillor's got a passion for the waterfront, and we say, you know, look, you need to take a leadership role on that. When we go to Queen's Park, when we do speeches throughout Hamilton, when we go to Ottawa to talk to those folks. I want you beside me to tell the waterfront story and to continue to follow up alongside me as the mayor. Maybe you're a brownfields keener and you want to see that move ahead, or there's other issues that they want to focus on. That puts the ward councillor in a much stronger, much citywide perspective role, and they take leadership across, they're responsible for leadership right across the city rather than just the ward issues. I think that's critical, and for me, as a mayor, to inspire by leadership is the key. I need to inspire the other councillors to take the citywide role.
Thank you, Brian. We're getting close to the end of this. I want to thank everybody for the participation and the questions here, too. Like I say, a lot of these are variations on some of the themes. This is one that was rather unique, though, that came up yesterday that I want to throw in here. Because we talked about economic clusters a little while ago, and arts and culture is one of those, and we've talked to the Economic Development Department on our program, and they've talked about how the arts and culture is actually one of the magnets that draws new business, new people, and new investment into the community. And you've all, at one time or another, talked and supported the arts and culture sector, yet the numbers don't lie. Hamilton lags behind most other Canadian cities in funding for the arts in this community. We've lost Opera Hamilton. Theatre Aquarius receives less than 1/10 of what other cities contribute to their theatre plans. What do you plan to do about it? And we'll start with Fred Eisenberger. Fred?
Thank you, Bill, and that's an excellent question. And I think the frame is actually that it is a significant part, and should be, of our future economic development. So I'm not separating arts and culture into some separate category. It is about business. There's a music industry in Hamilton that's very vibrant and actually generates employment and business opportunities. There's a theater district and theater talent in Hamilton that does exactly the same. So we need to look at it as an economic development tool. It's one of the clusters that we have. Agribusiness is another that needs focus and attention, and making sure that we maximize the potential of it. So when we look at the funding regime, I mean, I'm always interested in partnerships. Clearly, there are to be partnerships that are strong, that provide them the opportunity, the ability to grow their cluster, their economy, their new business opportunities, and grow their audience. So how do we partner up as a city and an industry to make that happen? You know, we don't necessarily subsidize, new businesses that are coming into the city. We give them good process, and we hopefully give them a streamlined process that is effective, quick, and predictable, and gets them up and running as quickly as humanly possible. And I think we need to look at processes in the arts and cultural sector as well to find ways of helping them expand and grow their market. Handing over money isn't always necessarily the answer. What we need to do is look for those partnerships and alliances that actually get us to improve the opportunities that exist in the cultural sector. To understand it and appreciate it, look at Supercrawl that happened here just a little while ago, the amount of activity and people that it brings in terms of art, culture, music. It is a great generator for income, a great generator for new business along that particular area. We can regenerate areas, and quality of life is a big attractor for people that are looking to create new businesses and new opportunities in a city. So having good theater, having good entertainment is all part of that good quality of life that will attract new people to our community.
Thank you, Fred. To Brian McHattie. Brian, you've been on council for years. The lineup is long every year at budget time with all these arts groups. What do we do about funding?
Well, we haven't increased the funding in the last 10 or 12 years, and even just by the rate of inflation, it would have been probably $1 million more by this time for arts and culture in Hamilton. So we have fallen behind. We've fallen behind London and our comparable cities. The Art Gallery of Hamilton receives much less than a similar art gallery in London. The Professional Theatre Company, in our case Theatre Aquarius, receives orders of magnitude less than they do in terms of funding support from their counterparts in London. I mentioned London because it's a similar sized city with some similar characteristics. But this particular council that I've been part of, and I'm particularly proud of their leadership this past 4 years, and this council that's done it, is to examine the grants program that we have, and to look specifically at the arts and culture sector. And that's been supported by the Arts Advisory Commission here at the city. I was the council representative on the Arts Advisory Commission last term of council when we started this process. And we've looked at how to make improvements, how to find additional funding. And just yesterday at the General Issues Committee meeting, we tabled a new approach to grants, which will see up to $500,000 more put forth in the 2015 budget coming up shortly for arts grants in our city. And we know that those funds and Supercrawl's the high-profile example turns into millions of dollars in a return on investment perspective. So it's an excellent investment for our city. We've got the Junos coming. We've got a new music strategy. I moved motions on both of those. We're really excited about 2015 and the Junos coming to our city. A lot of great things happening, and we need to make it even easier for folks to set up cafes down on James Street North, James Street South, or open for business perspective. But next year is a huge year for us, and you'll see that additional investment, if I'm mayor, in this next budget bill.
Thank you, Brian. And to Brad Clark. Brad, people look at investment in arts not as a handout, but as an economic investment. If you're mayor, do we increase that? Do we do more?
I can tell you that we now have studies that show that the arts community, there is a direct economic benefit to the economy. And that subsequently goes to the development in those areas. So let's be clear, the arts sector is an industry, just like any other industry. It employs people. It brings revenue into the community, it feeds the GDP, and if you have specific areas of the city where you concentrate on the arts, you end up developing districts, whether or not it's an entertainment district, a recording area, or a music industry. My colleagues made a big point about the ability to pay when we were talking about arbitration. We forget about the ability to pay when everyone comes in asking for money from the city. We have significant challenges. We're in September, and at this point, we have a $12 million variance in our budget to our expenditures. Unfavorable. We've spent $12 million more than our budget allows. We have to be realistic with people. And the fix to all of these issues, no matter who's talking about it, is the economy. The fix is, how do we get business into the community? How do we increase the commercial side, the industrial side? How do we get business approved faster, quicker, more efficiently, eliminate the red tape? How do we encourage business leaders around the world, not just in the province of Ontario and the GTA, to come to Hamilton and site their factory, their company, their global head office here in Hamilton? And that has to be the concentration. And if we do that right, in a scant few years, we will have that extra ability to pay. But right now we don't. And the residents tell you time and time again, they can't afford more taxes. So we have to be cognizant of that. We have to be honest with people. Yes, we can start phasing in increases over time, but we cannot make dramatic changes to the arts community or any other grants to any other organization. We have to concentrate on our needs, not our wants. And that's what a good government does. That's what a good mayor does.
Thank you, Brad. We are drawing toward the end of our agenda, so I will now ask the members of the media to leave the room. These guys want to go in camera. Just kidding, just trying to make them feel comfortable. We will begin with closing statements, though, and as we mentioned at the beginning of our program, we'll go in reverse order for the closing statements, and we'll start with Brian McHattie. Brian?
Let's try to find my speech here. Thanks very much, Bill. All of you have an important choice to make on October 27th. If you feel the same way, the literally thousands of people I've talked to on my 100-day neighborhood tour feel, you'll choose hope. You'll choose prosperity. You'll choose achievement. As business leaders, if you're like me and so many other Hamiltonians I've been meeting with, you can imagine your city taking its rightful place on the national stage alongside the other great cities in Canada. As investors, you can imagine your experience at City Hall being remembered for how we helped move things along faster, not how we slowed things down. That's why I announced my Open for Business contract a couple of weeks ago. You can imagine your city as a vibrant, healthy, growing, financially stable, and jobs-rich place that's a great place to raise your family. All Hamiltonians have a right to demand great. A greatness you don't just imagine, but a greatness you can experience on your street, in your neighborhood, and throughout your city, no matter where you live, and no matter where you run your business. As your mayor, I commit to you that I'll work effectively with my fellow councillors, with you, and with all the residents to make Hamilton the great city it deserves to be. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Fred Eisenberger. Fred?
Thank you very much, and thank you, Bill, for a good job in moderating, and to the HBL for pulling this together. You know, these are important times. We have great momentum. We need to move our city forward. And so the ability to get the right issues on the table and then make the right decisions takes leadership. I'm uniquely placed to provide that leadership. There are three reasons why I say this. First, I've been there before as council member and as mayor. I know council and I know the city administration. It means that I'll be able to hit the ground running. That means I will get to work on day one. The second is that I have a renewed perspective. Since the last election, I've not been sitting idle. As president and CEO of the Canadian Urban Institute, I was given a unique vantage point on cities all around the world. I got to see how they approach the many of the same issues that we face here in Hamilton on a day-to-day basis. And third, I've become a better listener. It's important to listen to the many people in our community that have concerns. It's important to hear about their needs and desires for a better Hamilton. And people don't want divisive and derisive politics. They want leadership of hope, positive aspiration, and ambition. So together we can dream, we can build, and we can create our Hamilton of the future today, I have the experience you can count on and the leadership you can trust. Thank you for being here, and I enjoyed the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. And Brad Clark. Brad.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending so early this morning, and thank you to the listeners at 900 CHML. Our community is at a critical time in our history. We can go back to the old ways of doing things and hope for a different result, or we can choose to move forward in a positive new direction. As Hamilton's new mayor, I will work with Council to ensure your tax dollars are spent wisely to create more high-paying jobs and to improve the municipal services that you depend on. By making City Hall more accessible, more accountable, more financially responsible to you, the taxpayer, we can build a prosperous future for our children and our grandchildren. I've served as a city councillor and as Ontario's Transportation and Labour Minister. I know what it takes to get the job done for our community. Hamilton is on the doorsteps of great things. With strong new leadership, we will achieve the prosperity we deserve. For the change we need, it's time for a new mayor, and I ask for your support on October 27th, and I thank you.
Thank you, Brad, and thanks to each and every one of the members of our panel here. I think they all deserve a round of applause for their efforts here this morning. Thanks again to those who sponsored this event and brought us all together here at Michelangelo's this morning, too. This is Democracy at Work. And I know Keenan's probably got a couple of words he wants to say. Oh, just a couple of minutes? Okay, we'll do that. Tim, come on up here, first of all, and then I'll have my closing comments. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ross Goetz, the CEO of the Realtors Association in Hamilton, Burlington. And first of all, let me take this opportunity to thank the mayoral candidates this morning. Really enjoyed the presentation, and quite frankly, sometimes it was a little lively, but other times I'm sure we'll have a lot to look forward as far as the future in terms of the debate. So thank you very much for being here this morning. And also, I'd like to take this opportunity to also thank Bill. Bill's truly a professional and in terms of moderating this session, and at the same time, your team as well presenting on CMHL. So thank you. Let's have another round of applause for the group. I just have one very quick announcement on behalf of the Hamilton business leaders, and that is that we'll continue our engagement of the municipal election with the release of a 6-part video series highlighting these candidates and their vision for the city. So keep an eye on our website, is hamiltonbusinessleaders.ca, for an in-depth blog on entries on the group's 12 priority areas, which will be released throughout the campaign period. So I'm sure there's be other items on as well, so make a note of that, hamiltonbusinessleaders.ca. And on behalf of the Hamilton business leaders, number one, I just want to thank you for being here today, participating and getting involved and engaged in the political process. And please, please make sure you vote on October 27th. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, Ross. Let me just finish. I know many of you want to get back to work. This is the call to action. We're so pleased, and I have the greatest of respect for anybody that puts their name on the ballot for either this office or city council, or for that matter, for Board of Education and separate school trustees. That obviously is a body that has some tough decisions to make, too. We have a huge responsibility on October the 27th to elect a new council. This is a city that's on the move. We need to keep that motion going. We need to make sure that we make the right turns. There are some forks in the road up ahead and some difficult decisions to be made. You're electing, this is a business, the corporation of the city of Hamilton, and you're electing a board of directors. You want to make sure you get the 16 best people, the most qualified, capable people to do that. But this is also a city full of communities, and those people we're electing also need to be advocates for our needs. And so there's a sensitivity to that, too. This is a complex job that these people are aspiring to take over. And it's up to us now to do our homework, to do our research, to ask those questions, and to be there on October 27th to vote. And, of course, we'll follow that on 900 CHML and in the Spec and on CBC and all the other. We thank the media for being here, too, and Kevin, of course, from Hamilton Community News, who was here first, by the way, and didn't even touch the pastries. Kevin, I appreciate your self-control. It's amazing. Thank you, one and all, for being here, and we'll stay in touch over the next couple of weeks as we draw closer to Election Day. Have a safe trip and a great rest of the day. Thank you.